So welcome everybody to the 2025 Energy Summer School. This is Utah Needs Clean Energy alongside with the Utah chapter of the Sierra Club. I will be your instructor today, and you'll be seeing a lot of my face if you're online. If you're in person, you can also see my face. I'm here. First of all, I just want to thank the curriculum team. These are all volunteers from Utah Needs Clean Energy. So they're Sierra Club volunteers, and we've been working for a couple months to try to set up this course. This includes Elisa, Maya, Natalie, who is online, Stan, who was speaking earlier. Chris is helping today with their AV. Joan is also online. Emma is right here, has helped us with registration. And then there's yours truly, Luis Miranda. And in terms of my own check-in, I was born in Los Angeles, but I grew up in Guatemala. And I worked with the Bianco campaign in the Sierra Club. So in terms of our overarching arc of the class, today we are on August 21st. Who pays, what, and why? Previously, on July 17th, a month ago, we were talking about how the grid works and how utilities profit. And so we talked about generation, transmission, distribution as components of the grid. We also talked about how it's calculated, how much a utility actually needs to be able to operate on a given year, which is revenue requirement. After today, we're gonna, next month, we're gonna talk about clean energy meets the grid. It's gonna be about electric vehicles, solar, and other forms of renewable energy entering the grid. So hopefully these first two classes will help you really understand what's going on. We're gearing towards October 16th, which is when we're going to discuss about the Public Service Commission, just kind of how it works. And October 29th is the public hearing of the Integrated Resource Plan, which that will be your final exam for those of you that are looking for a certificate. For you to earn the certificate for this class, you just need to have gone through the classes and also submit a public comment. So today, it's all going to be about who's going to be responsible for what aspects of the operations of the utility. So if you are wanting to do something wonky on your Thursday evening, you're in the right place. So, and so let's get started here first with the first Menti. So I wanted to ask people about what is the most fascinating concept to you from last class in July 17th. So do folks see? Can people enter something? Okay, cool. So let's give you a couple minutes here. Maybe not a couple minutes, just a few seconds. Anything, just name any concept from the first class you felt was interesting to you.
If we didn't see the first class, could we see it somewhere?
Yeah. We sent the recording last time, but we're also going to post it on the website. So, okay. We had another answer here, the grid. Great. Different kinds of electric terms. Yes. Cool.
I love you.
Okay. Okay, different energy systems in the grid. Awesome. Well, revenue requirement. Ooh, whoever said revenue requirement. Lovely. You're amazing. That makes me really happy. Guarantee return to RMP. They're allowed the opportunity to have a return. They're not guaranteed. So making sure people are clear on that. AC/DC, we talked about the band. I'm kidding. You should check the recording to see if that's actually what we did. All right, let's move forward from here then. I don't know why I'm using the voting process here, so let's not worry about that. So let's talk about slicing the pie. That's today's presentation. And today we're going to start first by talking about the pie of responsibility, the revenue requirement. We'll move into the steps of how to conduct class cost of service study, which is going to be about functionalizing costs, categorizing and allocating them, essentially figuring out how do we figure out who's responsible for what? And then in the second part, we're going to talk about designing rates. What makes a good rate? Hopefully, folks were able to check your utility bills before coming. If you didn't, that's fine. I have some examples. We'll talk about tariffs and then pricing strategies. If we succeed today, by the time that we are done, you folks are going to know more than probably 99% of the population about how electricity at least gets charged. So it's a pretty cool thing. At least I think so. So let's move forward. And so slicing the pie, the study into the origins and responsibilities of our electricity costs. So I mentioned this thing, the pie of responsibility. I'm using this metaphor to see if I can help us out a little bit. I'm saying that the pie of responsibilities is revenue requirement. If folks remember from last time, that had to do with operating expenses, plus taxes, plus depreciation, plus the rate of return multiplied by the rate base. Do people remember what the rate base and the rate of return was? Somebody wants to shout it out? What does that have to do in this equation? Ooh, good reminder. Okay, the rate base is what the utility owns in terms of assets, and the rate of return is a percentage they're allowed to earn profit from. So everything before then is just like the cost of operating for a year. So this is the revenue requirement is what you need to operate for a whole year. We're going to try to figure out who is responsible for what part of the pie of responsibility. So we're going to specifically try to get to the point of understanding how each customer class is responsible. So residential customers, commercial customers. And there's going to be some steps to this. We're going to start with the revenue requirement. We're going to go through functionalization, categorization, and allocation. So what does that mean? So first, we start with the revenue requirement. I know that first class, I didn't quite go into numbers. And the intention isn't for you to like calculate all those numbers in your head, but we felt it would be helpful for you to have an idea. So I grabbed numbers from the 2025 rate case by Rocky Mountain Power at the Public Service Commission. The revenue requirement as they forecasted for 2025, it's $2.8 billion. That's how much it costs to run the grid in Utah. And you can see here what the numbers look like. So that's our departure point, kind of where we left last time. And so the first step, actually, let me ask you this question. What percentage out of the revenue requirement do you think just the generation portion is responsible for? We talked about generation, transmission, distribution, and general services. So could folks enter what they feel? The revenue requirement, what percentage of revenue requirement is generation responsible for? Seems like we're all over the place. This is truly guesswork. Okay. I love it. Okay, it feels like we have some trending towards above 50%, it looks like. Okay. Let's go ahead and let's enter this. The answer is 59%. 59% of all the revenue requirement has to do with just generation. The rest is transmission, distribution, and just like meters and other services. So let's carry forward. Oh, there you go. Yeah. Okay. So step one. Now we have the big pie. Now we have to functionalize it. All this means is, can we split the 2.8 billion into the different functions they're used for? In this case, generation is about 1.6 billion. Transmission is $500 million. Distribution is 472. And distribution meters and services are 134.5 million. So if we were to put it in a pie chart, it looks a little bit like this. And now you can see that 59%. That's a behemoth. And it makes sense, right? It's where the energy gets built. Transmission distribution is all about getting it delivered. So it makes sense. And that's the first step. You understand that? We're doing amazing. So step number 2 is categorizing. This is the step where we split now those numbers that we just came up with, generation, distribution, and all that, and now identify the primary cost drivers for that. So there you can have demand-related costs, and those are measured usually by like the peak kilowatt demand that is needed for any class. This will include essentially like we need to build the plant that is able to provide the electricity. That's what demand has to do, building the capacity. Energy-related costs have to do with the actual consumption per kilowatt hour of like generated or delivered. So you can see it has to do with fuel and energy purchases. And lastly, we have customer-related costs. And those have to do just with the number of the customers on the system. Okay? Those are the three primary cost drivers. And so this is, if we were to put it on a table, this is kind of how it would look like. We have on on the rows, we have the functionalization components. On the columns, we have the categorization components. I put a dot in everything where we can split it into, but an X means that just doesn't really exist. So for instance, generation, there's demand cost, right? Because we're building capacity and energy. Transmission, technically, we wouldn't categorize, have a category of energy costs for transmission, but Rocky Mountain Power does it. So I'm like, let's just put it in there. But you see that for a lot of demand and capacity, generation, transmission, lines, and transformers, right? And then customer costs are all the way to the bottom. And that's usually where the meters, the other services, like when you call the call center to get help, etc. That's where it happens. So how does that look like in terms of money? So here is how it looks like split. It's about 873 million for demand costs for generation, 761 for energy. You can see the other numbers. Transmission and energy, of course, is a lot lower. And also customer costs, $134.5 million. So that's a lot of money. So if we were to put it into a graph, this is how it would look like, the whole big pie. You can see that most of it is being spent on generation, like we were finding out, including the energy category. The customer category is a little bit smaller there. And so here comes, are you paying attention question? How do we usually measure demand-related costs? Do you remember what that driver is? Enter in the Mentimeter. Demand-related costs. Okay. We got some spiciness, okay. Ooh. Yeah, most of you are spot on. That's right. The right answer is the level peak of kilowatt demand. So, okay. Move forward. So another question is, what percentage of the revenue requirement are all residential customers responsible for? So we talked about this big generation stuff. Think about residential, commercial. What percentage of the revenue requirement do you think only residential customers are responsible for? Ooh, okay, very low percentages. Some people up there. Okay. Okay. Well, we have an interesting distribution. Nothing in the middle, but a lot around it. So the answer is, ooh, somebody took that attempt, and they're right. Oh, whoever you are, I don't know where you're at, but whoever you are, that's awesome. The answer is 42% of all the expenses are because of residential customers. Most of the majority of the rest is actually commercial industrial. So I'm bringing this up because the step 3 is about allocating. So now we need to figure out for the different classes of customers, how much they're actually putting pressure on the system, if you may. And so for demand, we use this term called non-coincidental peak. And a non-coincidental peak just means that as a user, is the highest usage you have at any given moment, either to the year or to the day, regardless of however other people have spent electricity there. So for us, for residential class, it's about 70 million kilowatts. That's how much the grid needs to be built for to be able to sustain at our peak demand. For a commercial and industrial, it's 42 kilowatts. But then look at the energy side of things. We use just the kilowatt hours, which we learned last time. Commercial industrial uses over twice as much as residential. And they have just a lower, non-coincidental peak. But yeah, they use a lot more electricity than our customers in residential. And then average customers. We have almost a million customers that are residential, but for commercial industrial, it's about 125,000. And that's how, then at the end, you can see the 2.8 billion you see on the bottom right corner. That's the revenue requirement. Again, that's the big pie. There's a public street lighting there that looks a little silly, but it does exist. Just so you know, the lights outside, we pay for it, but usually you pay it through your property taxes. So it's small one, 0.3%, but we got to shout it out. Now, mind you, these numbers that I ran through, they're all like aggregated. There's actually more than one residential class. There's not too many. For commercial industrial, there's a lot more options. So same thing for public street lighting. So how does that look like? It looks like this. For residential, you can see $325 million in demand charges and generation, 252 in energy. That's kind of how it looks like. Let me see if, okay, this is how the proportion looks like. The big number here would be the customer charges, because there's just a lot more people, and there's also like other special services for folks compared to commercial. And I'm gonna carry the residential part for the rest of the class, but I just want you to see a little bit of the comparison. Commercial, you see energy costs, $506.5 million. That's like the fuel, like essentially creating all that electricity that gets consumed. Compared to residential, it's 252. So you can see there how the costs is proportionally different, right? Same thing with customer charge here, $28 million for meters and services. There's just a lot less need for distribution lines and all that for industrial customers, whereas for other customers, it's 105 million. So this gives you an idea about how that responsibility gets split. And this is how that proportion looks like. So we should know now, by following these steps, the cost that each customer class incurs from their demand, from the energy consumption and customer participation. So this is something that Rocky Mountain Power had to conduct a class cost of service study that they then presented during the phase 2 of the rate case that they did. And once that's done, now we got to figure out how do you recover those costs. Before we do that, I wanted to ask you again another question to see if you're paying attention. Which category are costs of fuel and energy purchases usually related to? Is it demand-related costs, energy-related costs, customer-related costs? Okay. Overwhelmingly, everybody seems to know the right answer. It's energy. So that's great. We'll come back to this a little bit more. Okay, I have had no questions from the audience here. So let me just make a little moment here to ask any questions about the class cost of service studies portion of the class so far. Online as well, if anybody wants to go off mute and ask a question. I'm not seeing any chat, so. Okay, Will.
Not sure if you have any information on this, but like how this compares to like other states.
Mm.
Of like, is this normal? is this abnormal?
So the question that Will just asked, for those of you that are online, is how do this costs numbers compared to other states? Is this normal or not normal? So I don't know, but one thing I do know is that we do have the lowest costs in the country. I believe that's right, Sam?
Pretty close, yeah.
We're at least pretty close. So now, costs, money-wise, but we also need to talk about the costs of burning fossil fuels and how public health and environmental degradation also happen. Those are usually not taken into account when calculating the costs of service. So thank you for your question. Any other question before we move forward? Okay. Okay. No questions online either? Okay. Awesome. All right. We'll just keep moving forward then. Now we're going to talk about the art of and science of recovering costs and why it matters. If I was in your shoes, I'll be pretty excited because this is really cool. So first of all, I just want to ask you, how would you rank the following priorities in terms of how energy policy should be looked after? So if you go on Mentimeter, you can go ahead and move around your ranks and send that. Do you feel like your highest priority would be protecting low income customers? Would it be lowering the costs for ratepayers? Would it be creating quality jobs in energy communities? Would it be supporting the adoption of renewable energy? Should have added electrification, reducing greenhouse gas emissions. Okay, and we got two answers coming through. There's not a right or wrong answer here. It's just whatever is personal. I also just came up with these. I could have probably added some more. Okay. This is really interesting. I'm going to give it some more seconds, but I'm fascinated by these results. Okay. So we've had about 10 responses in, and it looks like fifth, lowering costs for ratepayers. Fourth, creating quality jobs in energy communities. Third, protecting low-income customers. Second, supporting the adoption of renewable energy. And first, reducing greenhouse gas emissions. Is this a Sierra Club meeting? Maybe. Yeah, this is really cool and interesting. And so, yeah, anybody had any particular thought about this question?
I would have thought lowering costs for ratepayers would be number. So I'm very surprised that it's up front.
Me too, Brad. So Brad, who's in the audience, was just saying, like, I would have expected lowering costs for ratepayers would be higher. Number one, you said?
I thought that would be the first one.
Be the first one. But in fact, at least here between us, it's not. So it's interesting. And Chris? Oh, Kaiser.
Oh, I was just going to say that not all renewable energy is created equal when it comes to reducing greenhouse gas emissions. So,
Ooh. You want to just say just a sentence or two what you mean by that?
just that the life cycle of how we get to that renewable energy is also going to impact its emissions. So it's really easy to say, yes, we just need blanket solar, but some solar companies are wiping out forests to put in solar fields, or the critical minerals that go into the solar also add to greenhouse gas emissions. So I just always want to put the little asterisk of reducing the greenhouse gas emissions can sometimes come above the type of renewable energy.
Fire comment. Thank you, Kaiser. Because Kaiser is right. It's not just simply about getting the renewables, but also that it has also a cost. And that's part of what needs to be balanced here. And we do have a renewable siting policy as the Sierra Club as well, in terms of the ethics of where renewable energy gets placed. We don't support hydro, for instance, for several reasons, but I don't need to open up that Pandora's box just yet. Okay. Thank you for sending these. It's kind of just something to prime you up, because what I would argue is that all these things matter. I don't know if it's only just one thing or the other. I think all of them matter. I'm not going to say that they matter equally, but designing rates, it's a lot of it is going to be how can we make all these priority happen with the way that the costs are recovered through the bills. Because usually that's what becomes the big debate when you go to the Public Service Commission. So let's talk about what makes a rate good. And some commonly used rate design criteria comes from the Baum-Bright Principles. That's a book that was written a while ago, Those Principles of Public Utility Rates. Usually we want a rate that customers will understand. It's not too complicated that people don't know exactly what to expect. You want to have a rate that has some ease of implementation, that it's not too hard to implement. You want to collect the utility's costs of service, of course, fairly apportion cost among customers, and avoid undue discrimination. Those are usually some of the principles that Public Service Commission and people in the industry would look into. And that leads me, have you seen your bill lately? Can I ask by a raise of hands, and if you're online, maybe like you can just do I don't know, a thumbs up or something. But yeah, have you seen your bill lately? Okay. Yeah. Okay, we have 3 people here in person. Online, you have at least 2. Honestly, I don't usually pay that much attention to my bill. It just kind of gets automatically charged. So good, I don't pay attention to it. But it's really interesting. There's a lot of information there. So some of the rate elements, essentially elements that are used in the rate, you can see here. We have customer charges, which are usually often just fixed flat monthly costs. In this case, for this bill, is this basic charge, what's on yellow. There's energy charges, which are being charged per kilowatt hour consumed. There's usually some kind of credits that have to do around behavior, like, hey, you're not using paper. Here's 50 cents back, which I appreciate. There's this other more complicated thing called riders and trackers. It's an adjustment mechanism for changes in certain costs. So here you see this energy balancing account. That's been a hot button topic at the legislature. Consider that the legislature tried to abolish it, or I don't know, ban it, I think back early this year. And what the energy balancing account, for those of you that don't know, is that they have a forecast of how much they think is going to take to generate given amount of electricity, but the cost of coal changes depending on the market. And if it's too expensive, this is the way they recover the money that they wouldn't have been able to recover. Or if it gets cheaper, they can also give you a credit. And so there's a few kind of riders and trackers that you can sometimes see. And lastly, taxes. So I want to ask you, how many kilowatt hours did you consume over the last month? Okay. I'm really curious, because when we were looking at between people in our group, like our electricity bill, we have very different degrees of like how much electricity we spend. So these are kilowatt hours, 0 to 2,000. If somebody has more than 2,000, then we're hosting the next class there, hopefully in your patio with your butler. So maybe that's exaggerating. Electrification, I'm sure that. Do people want to get? If you did the homework, you would know. But if not, then you can put a guess. It's fine. After this, I feel like everybody's going to be checking out their bill. Like, wait, what am I being charged for? Okay. This is interesting. Okay. All right. I'm going to show you now the actual annual average for Rocky Mountain Power here in Utah. And it's not 700, sorry. It's 731 kilowatt hours. That's the actual average. But the summer average for customers of Rocky Mountain Power is actually closer, I think, to 800 or 900 in the summer. So most likely, most of you are way off. So maybe good to check your bill, because it's unlikely you've spent you know, 100 kilowatt hours. Maybe you didn't spend any time home and you turned everything off. Okay. Well, for you to really understand this in the future, the key here is the tariff. Wait, does Trump write? Sorry. Yes, I can speak about it. We talk about Trump tariffs, right? That's not what we're talking about here. A tariff is a document that outlines the terms and conditions, you know, under which you are being priced. So essentially describes like what your bill charges are and how they're charging you. Most likely for US residential customers, you're going to be on Schedule 1, which is the same one that I'm in. And it's actually pretty easy to search. If you were to just go online and put like tariff, Rocky Mountain Power, you look for Schedule 1 and boom, that's it. It will tell you what's up. And the thing is that the tariff is the rules for how you're being charged. It must be approved by the Public Service Commission. So this is what the utility company wants to be able to do to recover costs. Convince you to the Public Service Commission that it's okay to charge us this much and in this way. And so we're going to start first in our journey into designing a rate, turning costs into pricing. We're going to start with a two-part tariff, essentially customer charge, which is the flat fee we talked about, and an energy charge that has to do with consumption. So customer charge plus energy charge times the consumption of energy in that month. And if you look on the left side, for just the residential class, not for anybody else, I put just the totals of the energy costs, demand costs, and customer costs for the class. So we have to take that, do some magic, and come up with dollars per kilowatt hour charge, and also like flat dollars per month. So one strategy you can take is you can say, hey, let me take all of our energy costs and just make that $375 million into an energy charge. So what we're doing there is usually taking the amount of kilowatt hours, divided by the revenue requirement, and I think that kind of gets us there. And we can say, let's put all the demand costs and the customer costs together, lump them up into a customer charge. So for the energy charge, we have about 5 cents per kilowatt hour. That's a pretty low one. And a customer charge of $75.71 a month. Does anybody, I should not ask that question. I was going to say, like, does anybody here pay more than that? I don't, but I live in a very small house, and I don't have to pay for AC, thanks to my incredible landlord, who may be on this call. So if you're here, shout out. All right, so how does that look like? Look at this graph. If you spend no kilowatt hours, on your bill is just going to be $75.71 plus whatever taxes, right? 731, that gets you to $108.90. That's actually the average. That would be the average cost per customer per month. The cool thing about this is that essentially, if you reduce less consistently than the monthly average, one of the challenges of this is that if you are someone that consumes less than the monthly average, you're likely going to see your bill go a little bit higher because of the flat fee. You just have to pay that every month no matter what, because the per kilowatt hour just isn't super steep. This usually ends up benefiting folks like low-income customers for whom they live in like energy inefficient dwellings, where they usually spend more than the average. And if they were to have a higher per kilowatt hour charge, their bills can go really, really high. But it does place a bigger burden on people that maybe don't consume as much. So that's one strategy. Strategy number one. Low rate, but high fee. So high start and low increase. Strategy number two could be, well, what if we just take the energy costs and demand costs and lump them into the energy charge? So we're not doing 5 cents anymore. Now we're doing 14 cents per kilowatt hour. And we just use the demand costs and just plan that out. That's like the number is the revenue requirement divided by the number of customers divided by 12, I think. And that comes to $9.19 a month. So how does that look like? You can see here that if you consume 0 kilowatt hours in that given month, $9.19. Thank you. I just saved myself a lot of money, right? I don't have to contribute so much. But if I consume more than the average, suddenly it doesn't feel as good. So it reduces costs for low energy consumers, which is great. It does benefit owners of like solar panels, and it benefits people that have energy efficient dwellings and homes, because if they're consuming less than the average, that means they're going to benefit more. And so, question, which strategy would you personally prefer? Would you want strategy 1, high customer charge and a lower energy rate? Would you prefer more of a low customer charge and high energy rate, or something else? So I want to see what people are thinking. Okay, we have a little bit of a spread. Nope, we have a trend now. Seems like everybody wants low customer charge, high energy rate. From the people that said that, can I just have like maybe a person or two say just why? Just shout it out. Motivating
I have solar
people.
panels.
Owning solar panels. Okay, great. Whoever that was. Debbie. Thank you, Debbie. There was, oh yeah, go ahead. The financial incentive to use less energy. Okay. How about people that maybe you don't want to be singled out, but if you did choose high customer charge, low energy rate, if you're that single person? Wow. Okay. Fair enough. So it was an accidental press. How about something else? That's actually very curious. Yeah.
I guess I was just curious if you could do like a 50-50 kind of thing, so that people who like have very inefficient energy, like their houses are very inefficient, if they can still benefit having a higher rate. But people who use less energy can still also get that benefit.
Right. So yes, I put that in there for that purpose, for all of you to realize it doesn't have to be one way or the other. You can also like figure out maybe different strategies. Maybe you split the demand charge between the flat fee and the energy charge, right? You can get creative around this to figure out the needs of your customers and the needs of your grid, cost recovery. So thank you for bringing it up. Chris?
I think some people online are saying that they have solar, and so that means the middle option is in there. It would save them money.
Yes, 100%. They would be right. So I believe I was checking with Stan. Sorry, Stan, if I'm outing you out as a proud owner of solar energy, but you're in Schedule 1, which is a residential customer, but also Schedule 135. You were grandfathered, right, on the old rates for net metering? Right. So in your bill, my assumption is you have one section, which is just your Schedule 1 charges. That looks probably a lot like that. And then you have another section, which is like your credits for like.
Yeah, it shows how much that I drew from the grid and then how much I put back in.
Yeah.
And it gives me the net, the balance.
So
Each month.
thank you, Stan. Natalie.
Yeah. So I said something else, and I totally get wanting to like incentivize the market to increase solar and reduce energy rates. I am concerned about with the higher energy rate, then we're almost punishing low income people. So we almost need to have some sort of like government incentive, and that's why I said something else, to help lessen the burden on those who are in dwellings that they can't afford to make more efficient and save money. It's kind of a catch-22, but yeah, that's why I said something else.
Yes, and thank you, Natalie, because when you go to the Public Service Commission, all of a sudden you're going to hear the AARP, you're going to hear advocates from consumer side that are going to be like, hey, these rates are too high and our folks are living in these situations. Why are they being overburdened by this when they're probably the people less resourced to do that? It's not their fault per se that maybe they're seniors and they are on Social Security and they cannot afford things. So we have to be conscious of that. There's something called LIHEAP, which is Low Income Heat Assistance Program. I forget if it is that, but I think there's a credit that you can qualify for if you are low income, but also there's a question of how you would want to do it. Let me move forward because I want to let you know that RMP, Rocky Mountain Power, also favors that strategy number 2 that we just talked about. If you notice, for this one, it's a multifamily dwelling. It's a $7 charge. By the way, this is a bill that we got from one of our volunteers that was for last month, so it's pretty recent. $7 basic charge, which is even less than what we were calculating there, and the energy charge is actually about 10 cents per kilowatt hour. Mind you that these are numbers of a revenue requirement calculation that happened years ago. So what I was showing you earlier is more up to date. So the costs are a little bit higher. But wait a second, there's like these 2 blocks. Now, where are those block things? There were different rates. Why are they showing different rates? Okay, apparently I need to ask players to be ready because there's a question I was about to ask you and I don't remember what the question is. But we'll, thank you, players. Okay, I'm gonna start the quiz. It's not really a very long quiz. All correct answers give max points. Okay, which document would we find the prices and the terms and conditions for every customer? Type your answer. Just need to make sure you folks remember. Okay. Let's see if people are paying attention. It's the time of the evening. I understand. I'm proud of you. Okay, we have 6 answers. Which document would we find the prices and terms and conditions for every customer? Okay, the answer is the tariff. And okay, thank you, people that type tariff. If you say terms and conditions, you know what? Brownie points. Cool, thank you. Just to remind you. Okay, well, if you look at the tariff, you can find out a lot more information. So let's talk just about some more pricing strategies, and then we'll finish this up. So one of them, which is likely the current one that you would be in as a residential customer, is block rates. You can do something where you can say up to a given amount, we're going to charge this rate, and then once we get to a certain consumption moment, which in this case, for Rocky Mountain Power Schedule 1 residential customers is 400 kilowatts. After that, we're going to charge you a different rate. You can have a inclining block rate. You can have a declining block rate. It depends on what the need of the utility company is, but clearly here it's saying once you get to 400, we're just going to charge you more. Mind you that the annual average is 731 kilowatt hours per month per customer. So likely most of y'all will pay a certain rate, and then we'll start paying more once you cross the 400 kilowatt hour cost. I put the orange to show the peak energy season, which is June through September, and then the off-peak energy season is October through May. Usually that's when you have like gas heating taking more of a role as opposed to electricity, so electricity consumption goes down versus having the AC on. But block rates, that's based on the total monthly energy use. So that's one strategy you can adopt, which Rocky Mountain Power does for you. Another strategy, which interesting enough will become an option in December, is time of use rates. So instead of changing the rate based on how much you've consumed, how about we change the rate depending on the time that you're actually consuming that electricity? So if you are, as we're talking about June through September, that's our on-peak months. If you spend any kilowatt hours between 6 p.m. and 10 p.m. Monday to Friday, except holidays. So essentially, all the other hours are off-peak, but only those times, 6 to 10, is the on-peak. You will pay in the summer 31, essentially 32 cents per kilowatt hour. And if it's October through May, it'll be 28 cents per kilowatt hour. And then after 10 p.m., it decreases. So that's a way to curb consumption during a time where the grid is actually the most burdened. Incentivizing people to use electricity at other times of the day. But if you have your AC on at that time, which is really hot, again, this is where they're going to recover their costs. And so I want you to name one reason why the way a rate is designed would matter to you, the ratepayer, like this decision. Just one reason, nothing more, nothing less. I have solar. That's a really good reason.
That blue that showed the time-based, is that the proposal or is that just an example of a possibility?
It's not a proposal. It's been passed.
No, like that specific time frame being out of that is the law.
Yeah, it's on your. You can pull it up on Schedule 1. I think it's an opt-in.
They thought it was interesting that the same time frame in winter and summer is the cheaper or more expensive.
The more expensive, yeah. Which is usually when it's a bit more pressure on the grid. Okay, so some reasons coming up. I have solar, financial burden, so saving money, conserving. I presume that's environmental. That's also money-wise. Again, money. It shapes decisions I make with energy usage. Should I get solar panels? When should I charge my car? That's a great question. But next class, we're going to be talking about that. Money. We're talking a lot more about money this time, even though we voted as a 5th reason. That's interesting, right, Brad? Fairness to low-income families. Okay. Influence my usage habits. Great. All these are valid reasons for why the rate is designed matters, right? So we were going to do voting, but we're going to skip it just because of time. So just some closing thoughts. So if you are the utility company, if you're the Public Service Commission, where are you going to temper down the costs? Where are you going to get them down? If, in the case of Rocky Mountain Power, you choose to double down on coal, and coal has become more expensive to operate compared to other sources of energy, you would want to not invest on things that will be more expensive, because then the cost is going to come to us as ratepayers. And they're also going to own the assets and profit from it, right? So just inviting you to think, like, where could we cut costs where it makes sense, where we still can remain reliable and also hopefully clean for the environment. Another point is solar and net metering, right? We have a few folks that are here in today's class talking about owning solar or wanting to own solar, sell energy back to the grid. Usually there's a lot of, there's Rocky Mountain Power fights to take away the right for us to get electricity from the sun because of that utility debt spiral they speak about. But should solar users pay the price for just poor planning by the utility company, right? Doesn't it still benefit us to try to create electricity from distributed generation through solar panels? Again, doesn't solar also bring avoided costs that are possible? So is the utility thinking about that? Which leads me to the last point, which is that the integrated resource plan really matters, because Rocky Mountain Power removed the retirement dates on coal, despite the fact that they released a study that their plans are not as economic as they used to be. So should we be the ones that are paying for the imprudence of a for-profit company? So that leads me to ask you the question. If you go on Mentimeter, it's going to be one of your very last questions. Where will you be on the evening of October 29, 2025? You need to put a pin down. I want to see people. This is a very serious question. Where will you be on the evening of October 29, 2025? Okay, I can see somebody's going to be at Fear Factory. Yes, that sounds like fun. A planetarium, okay. That's valid. Honestly, that room upstairs where they have like the skies, that's pretty cool. Maybe we should have the aquarium in there, right? I would love to go to aquarium.
Shark show at the planetarium.
Shark show? When is Shark Week?
It just happened.
Oh, okay, fair enough. Okay, well, that was a trick question as well for you. Yes, the answer is you're going to be at the Public Service Commission with all. So, so okay, what final questions do we have about then today's presentation before we close? Okay.
Know about Blue Sky.
Blue Sky?
Yeah, I think it was in reference to how we can save money and the trackers.
I don't have an answer. I'm actually not very familiar with Blue Sky.
Okay.
Support him.
The other one is,
Oh, sorry. Chris was asking about Blue Sky. So thank you.
Jen is wondering how utilities are going to distribute costs as AI data centers come online.
Jan, you're asking the good questions. Okay. That's a good question as well. We would have to get back to you because I'm not exactly sure if in the last rate case, if there was a scheduled developed for this. So yeah, I wouldn't know specifics. Oh, Brad?
I just met with Provo Power and Mayor's Office in Provo. They will not be voting in any AI database groups into their, or allowing companies like that to exist in Provo.
Okay. Brad is saying that he just met with officials at Provo City that have mentioned that they will not allow new AI to be built on their city area.
They're going to meet with them.
They're going to meet with them.
The scuttlebutt is they're not going to allow them.
Yeah.
At this point.
Yeah. I will mention, folks, that in terms of AI, the largest AI campus, which I think would double, data center campus, they're trying to build it by Delta, Utah, Miller County. That's in the West Desert. And so that's a proposal right now, and I forget where it's being seen, but that's an intention. I think there was a city council meeting. Stella?
I was going to say that over summer they built the largest AI processing factory.
Yeah. Utah, a place where the Great Salt Lake is drying, but we got to keep our AI centers going. And that's part of this, is like also it's up to you. Chris?
I'm just wondering if that potential data center would be bigger than the NSA facility at Pointed Mountain.
Yes, I believe so. I believe it's like unequivocally just larger. But it might be just commercially. So, any final questions? Okay, folks, you know more about electricity now than most people. So you should be pretty proud of yourselves, because now with knowledge comes power. And so the next class is going to be on September 18th, so a month from now, third Thursday of the month. And we're going to talk about the opportunities and challenges that come with integrating solar, battery storage, and electric vehicles into our grid. Essentially, what we want to do is equip you to hear all the arguments, well, not all the arguments, but important arguments for and against that you would usually see in the public debate. So, yeah, so hopefully you're here. If you're online, you're welcome to join us here in person. I want to this is our usual checkout question. We usually ask people one word that describes how you are feeling right now. So I'm actually also see if I can join the Menti. Ooh. One word of how you're feeling right now. This is usually our practice when we do our checkouts for our meetings, because yeah. Okay. And that's valid. So I've just submitted mine as well. So I can see interested. It seems to be coming through. Clarity, anti-data center. You and me. Hey, knowledge is power. Pumped, excited. My back hurts. That's also valid. Hungry. You know what? You can say you're hungry, but you could have come here in person. You could have driven 4 hours from whatever corner of Utah just to eat pizza. No, I'm just kidding. Thank you for joining us online. But if you're in person, there's still pizza here. Please make sure to take some of that. And so, thank you, folks. Here's a QR code. If you want to just scan that and send us some feedback. We've listened to the feedback from before. If you had questions, if you wrote any questions on the Mentimeter or on the chat from last time, this last email to let you know about this should have a link to all of our responses. From today, I'm going to see if we can get some kind of response about Blue Sky and about data centers and rate case. But yeah, we got some new microphones to hopefully